with a restraining order, he must immediately vacate. Okay? Now, vacate his family residence. Now, that's probably not a bad thing if there was real cause. But there's no standard of cause whatsoever. A woman just needs to go to court and needs to say, I'm afraid. And judges issue these restraining orders without any concern for the rights of the man involved. He's out and he spends 10 days on a couch somewhere, on his mom's couch, on his friend's couch. He's been separated from his children. And this is one of the most horrible things about these laws architected by people such as the judge, is it's collateral damage. It's as if the good justifies all of the errors and all of the pain it causes. And it assumes that we as fathers have no pain when we're separated from our children. And that pain is enormous. And I deal with this with men every single day. And it is incredibly painful. And we are acceptable collateral damage. If we fought the war in Iraq that way, we would have chosen the nuclear option. Positively unacceptable. I also want to, as a father's rights advocate, I counsel a lot of men who have gone before the judge. And they've just simply been issued restraining orders without concern about what the facts were. And the reason is in the system, there is no consequence to a judge for being flipped on appeal. You know, meaning to have their decision to issue a restraining order flipped on appeal. After the 10-day hearing, after a 10-day period goes by, men have the right to a hearing over the restraining order. Most of the time, I don't know why it's called a hearing because there's no hearing. Within 30 seconds, they're walking away from the bench. It was only through the appeals court in 2005 that we were granted the right to a full evidentiary hearing. Had it not been for the appeals court, we would not have the right to defend ourselves from this. It's really, really frightening. Finally, I just want to clarify one thing that Mr. McKay stated. The rule of thumb is just an example of how much misinformation has been put into the public's eye to create the necessity to override the rights of men in courts against these restraining orders, and the reason the emotional reason, the evoked emotional response to get people to support bad legislation that doesn't help victims of domestic violence and makes fathers collateral damage. The principle is that there's folklore, and there's a lot of folklore. You'll hear folklore that says that 1 out of 15 children has birth defects, according to the March of Dimes, because of domestic violence. You'll hear things like the rule of thumb that it was legal for a man to beat his wife as long as it was with a switch that was smaller than his thumb. That's been discounted many times. Christina Summers has discounted. Take a look at the literature. It's been discounted and not true. I heard the judge use that as a defense for the current domestic violence laws at the New England law. And I also heard her say that the system is never abused. And I think all you have to do, if you really want to make a good decision on Judge Hanlon, and we really can't afford her in the appellate court, because that's the only place that we get any justice. If you want to make a good decision, go out and talk to all the divorced men you know. The men that you have known for 10 and 20 years who are good men, and say the word restraining order. And get them to talk about what it was like to be separated from their children. I spent a year, there was no reason that I couldn't see my daughter. I had unequal custody. I had physical and regular custody. My ex-wife had a restraining order. My daughter was not included, but I was so afraid of the judges and so afraid of the police that I didn't see my daughter for a year, even though I had the right. But I've seen too many people violated, gone to court, put through hell over these laws that in the end don't address the most serious problem, which is domestic violence, which happens behind doors, behind closed doors, and requires a real community approach, and requires a lot of smart people, not the court of last resort of social services. The courts are not designed for it, and they should stick to actual cases of real abuse, and this program should be moved out of the court. Thank you.
I have a question. Sure, Councilor American.
You mind if I ask you 3 questions?
No.
So you have a restraining order issued against you, and is there still a pending restraining order against you?
No.
And when you said you think that domestic violence is not designed for the courts, what do you mean by that?
We have a set of laws that say that you shouldn't abuse people, that you shouldn't assault people. They're already in place. We didn't need these laws because essentially they're making social workers out of judges.
So is it your position that judges have no meaningful role to play when a case of domestic violence comes before the court, and that it should belong to some sort of outside agency to deal with?
They have a relevant role to play when there are some facts, when there are people who are willing to testify, when there can be a true evidentiary hearing, but where evidence can be issued and entered.
But you said some things about the use of the restraining order that just aren't true. People don't get an ex parte order without presentation of facts to a judge to make a decision based on what he or she hears from somebody who's applied for that restraining order. They do it under oath, do they not?
To respectfully disagree with you, there has never been a woman who has been tried for lying in her affidavit.
You can't say that.
There never has been.
You don't know that.
I know that for a fact, because it would be tattooed.
No, that has nothing to do with judges, does it?
Yes, it does.
That's up to the district attorney to prosecute somebody for perjury if they think that perjury has been presented to a court. Women perjure themselves every single day, and it's accepted. Judges accept it. There's no punishment whatsoever for that. Aren't you ignoring the issue of the fact that domestic violence exists and it's pervasive? That it has